So did you hear that, guys? Even louder. What a good way to start this awesome Sunday morning. Hope you're off to a really good start. Welcome to Rhema Central Coast if you're joining us for the first time today. I'm just sliding in right now. I'm just kind of kicking things off. So you have picked a pretty good time to sort of join us. If you've been hanging around for a while, welcome back. It's nice to have you again. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Lindy and I am here most Sunday mornings, pretty much every one of them. So I'm your Sunday morning host. Hope you can join us again, if not for most of this morning. If you can kind of be part of what happens here on a Sunday morning every week, it'd be lovely to have you in whatever way you can kind of be a part of things. We'd love to have you amongst it. I love to hear your feedback. So anything that you have to share, we would love to know where you're at, what's going on for you at the moment, and what's going on for your spiritual walk, that sort of thing. Help us to know where you are at so we can work out where we need to go. It's one of those things. I think you kind of gauge, you spend time in prayer when you're preparing a program like this. You spend time in prayer. I can honestly say that most radio stations probably don't do that. But you're aware of sort of listening in to God and His sort of leading week in and week out. But I think it's so important also for us to get an idea of where you guys are at. You know what's going on in your week to week. You know what's happening. You know the challenges that you're facing. And sometimes to have a little bit of feedback to go, hey, this is something I'd love for someone, to explore. I'd love to better hear more on this particular topic, or, we'd love to hear where you're at and how we can support you to navigate those different scenarios or situations. So by all means, send us an email. Rhema.cc is a good place for us to be, you can find all the contact details. We'd love to hear from you. I think radio engagement, knowing what our listeners are kind of being challenged with, the things that they're looking forward to, the joys. We want to hear what's going on for you so that we can celebrate with you, so that we can walk the roads with you, so we can have those moments of triumph with you, and that we can also be in those moments of prayer for you as you are going through the harder stuff. It's a bit of a weird sort of thing when it comes to radio, because you think it's all just kind of, we'll throw stuff out there. But there really is an element of engagement that kind of, especially in something like this where it's community radio, we bounce off each other. We work out what's working in this area, what things do we need to, what do we need? How do we support each other? How do we get each other to a point where we're in a better place, better space? We can celebrate, as I said, those moments of triumph in life, because in the Christian world especially, I think there's a different kind of challenge to what some of the world deals with. Our challenges they're different. They're just, we deal with the worldly stuff, but then there's that kind of that level of spiritual warfare, yes, but it's also in a world where people just don't get us. The way we do things is not, if you like, the typical, especially when God has been challenging us and our heart, and we find ourselves doing the crazy things, the things that make no sense to other people. But hopefully they're all in line with cleaning up our act and getting ourselves right before God. Listen, guys, we are going to be covering something over the next few weeks. I thought kind of makes sense. I'm just starting a kids club up in the Hunter region where I am. And when I'm designing programs like that, most of my background is community welfare sort of stuff. And I have, pretty much since I left school, known how to, organise community programs. So we've just started a kids club, and I don't want to leave the kids just kind of going, oh, that was fun. I want to give them some substance, something to work and to hold on to through life. So we are in the next 70 days, well, we started last week actually, covering sort of the concept of 70 days around the world. And I thought about that this morning for here. I thought, you know what, I could actually tie some of this stuff together We can do some I can sift through some information about different cultures, different parts of the globe that we often don't think about. Now, I'll admit I'm a bit cautious because I hear things on social media or other places about Australia, and I sit there and think, nah, that's not quite how it is. So I am sceptical in terms of what information I can find about some of these countries. But what I can find, I'm going to present to you guys, and we're going to kind of lift those countries up. We're going to keep them upheld in prayer, obviously, because every country could deal with some prayer. Do you not agree? I think it is a big thing. Certainly highlighting different things that are going on for different nations around the world. It's not a bad way to do things. So this is the beginning. This is my introduction to 70 days around the world. Doesn't mean we won't be talking about other stuff amongst all of that, but stick with me because we're going to be exploring different countries around the world, and I'm looking forward to it. All right, see you soon. And welcome back, guys. That was, let me just double check before I say the wrong thing because my brain is not quite there yet. It's Sunday morning, come on. Redemption Song, Apollo LTD. There we go. I got it right before I really messed it up because, as I said, it's Sunday morning. I don't know about you guys. My brain is not necessarily in the game all the time. I do happen to be someone who, if you ask my family, I don't lay very still for very long at home. I'm kind of like, okay, I'm awake, let's go. There's things to do, things to learn. I'm not very good at sitting still. But having said that, I do have days like today where I'm not quite there yet. So we'll see how we go. Guys, we are going to be talking about something that is relevant to every single one of us, especially those of us who have an understanding of and deep love of Jesus. We are told, the church is told to go into the world and preach the gospel to all creation. Now that's found in Mark 16:15. There are many Bible verses, I'll throw some at you in a moment, that highlight how important it is to be able to go out into the world and share the truth, the hope, the joy, the peace, the kindness, all that is good with the world. And where does it come from? It comes from knowing Jesus. We have so much to share by knowing how to communicate with those people in different parts of the world. I think that's a big part of it. But we have so much hope, and why would we not want to share that with the world? So what we're doing over here on a Sunday morning for the next few weeks really is sort of looking at different countries across the globe that don't necessarily get talked about much. Well, not in a real sort of in-depth way. I love those programs, sort of the getaway shows and the travel sort of shows. I don't watch them a whole lot, but when they come on, I find myself just sort of zooming in and going, oh, cool. Actually interesting, a few weeks ago, I hadn't thought about this till now. My husband and I were watching one of them. He got up and disappeared somewhere in the house, and I was like, I don't know where he is. And I was just completely zoned in this program. And I'm ridiculous, I know, but if you're a family, you know that you text each other from the next room. It just happens. You kind of send a message and say, hey, where are you? And I was doing that, and he was like, I can't really get into these shows. And I said, you bet I can, because for me, I look at it and think, oh, one day when life gets a little bit more simple, when's that going to be? I'm looking forward to exploring some of these places. But I think there's a difference between exploring and approaching something with a mission mindset. And that is what I'm sort of exploring this morning. Now, I don't want to throw around the word mission too easily. I will be, this is an honest one. I don't know if it's going to backfire, but I'm going to be out. I'm going to tell the truth because I think it's important for us to hear how other people in our churches might see things. When I hear the term mission, part of me sort of goes, I tend to roll my eyes and think, oh, yeah, okay. And there is, as much as I hate to say it, there is a part of me that goes, but you've got so much work to do here. We've got, so many people right on our doorstep that we can be on mission too. And that is true. But in terms of the eye rolling and here we go, we're going to talk about the missions and missionaries across the world and all that stuff. That's probably something in terms of, my attitude that I need to adjust. I get it. But I'm just being realistic. If we're going to look at the church and things that need to change, I think the understanding of what a mission or a missionary sort of mindset is also needs to be looked at. We need to understand the complexities. I think, I don't know if it's the sense of, see, I'm the same thing with hymns. My grandma, her churches were always the hymn singing to churches. My husband is from a country town where everything is hymns, and my eyes sort of roll. It's kind of like, I don't know, that age, that era was kind of hymns, it was missionaries, it was that sort of stuff. And I feel like, this one goes a bit too, I don't know, but I'm going to throw it out there again because it is verbalizing something that is probably been and has been sitting in the church for a long time. I feel like generationally that a lot of that stuff has been passed down to my generation and the generations around my generation, that we are supposed to just celebrate and do things the same way that they've always been done. And that there is an expectation that we'll enjoy those things purely because that's just how it's been, celebrated in the generations before me or done in the generations before me. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the sort of church culture that says we are supposed to be, we're supposed to be singing these songs, we're supposed to be reading this particular Bible, or I do struggle with that sort of stuff. So when it comes to the missionary or missions sort of thing, I know I check out when it comes to stuff at church. I'm like, yeah, I'm looking elsewhere because I know that there's some work to be done here amongst us in this nation. But that's not okay. It's not okay on my part. We are told scripturally, and I'm being challenged on this myself, to be open to the idea of sharing this amongst the nations. Now, that means going out. Specifically, I read to you before, Mark 16:15, go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. 1 Peter 3:15 encourages believers to always be prepared to give an answer. Now, this, I don't have the actual scripture here, but it's just something I Googled a moment ago. And we are called to know how to answer people. That means studying their culture. That means being aware of the things that are going on in their part of the world. Psalm 96:3 is another verse. Declare his glory among the nations, his marvelous works among all the peoples. Now again, that's going back in the Old Testament. I keep getting that confused. Not confused, but I keep saying it wrong, and then I listen to stuff and I'm like, wait, that's not correct. I didn't say that right. But anyway, we need to be mindful that we are called to share his truth, his creation, his wonder, and the fact that Jesus died to save us. We have to be prepared to do that on all sort of levels. So as I said, I got it wrong. I know that I need to work on myself. And for anyone getting a bit defensive right now thinking, oh, I can't believe she said that, this is what it's about. It's about conversing. It's about having these conversations, about actually going to those places and saying those things that for a long time were sort of shut down. If you're told you can't say something, you don't actually get anywhere. You don't progress, you don't push through, you don't change or challenge culture, you don't change how things are done. So what I'm saying from me at this very moment right now is I know that there's an attitude thing that I need to work on in terms of how I saw or see certain aspects of how the church world has functioned, how we have often lifted up the missionary, if we like to call them that, because I don't actually know what that's about. But anyway, I think in a lot of church culture, we do highlight the preacher, we do highlight the missionaries, we highlight the worship leaders. And that's dangerous territory because honestly, every single one of us have an obligation. We have a duty to be doing what God has called us to do. And that is to get out and share his truth with the world around us, whether that happens to be on our doorstep or out amongst it. Now today I'm going to be talking about Mexico. We're going to be sort of zooming in on Mexico. I have explained previously this morning why I'm doing this, but I'll go back to that in just a moment. But I thought it's really important for us to address, firstly, before we do that, the Great Commission, which is exactly that. It's about going out and sharing who Jesus is. Jesus himself is calling us to make disciples of all nations, and in response to baptize them, to teach them, to nurture them into a place where His truth is so instilled in their lives that everyone sees it. What a huge responsibility, but what an awesome responsibility. I'm going to come back in a moment because I've covered a few things that I want to explore before I get into Mexico, because I'm just thinking right now. But yes, stick with me and we are going to explore those sort of things that I was just talking about, because I think we need to be challenged first in ourselves before we can have a great mindset in how we then go and reach those people that need to be taught about Jesus. I'll see you soon. And welcome back, Coasties. That was Bless God by Passion 2024. Good morning indeed. It is a good time to bless God. I want to say that we have to be mindful of how to do that. Blessing God. How do we do that? I think it's a great little sort of intro into where we're going today, actually, because a lot of sort of turning things back to bless God can come from the heart of who we are. When we don't get things right, when our attitude needs a bit of a shift, and I've just explored that with you guys not that long ago about something in me that I realise I need to work on. When we go to those places and we go, all right, God, I realise that there's something in me that needs to shift, I think that's honourable. I think that's a way of blessing Him, of turning those things. He has certainly blessed us, absolutely, and I'm actually going to cover that in a few weeks too. I've got a few ideas of where we're going in the next little bit, but to turn those things back to God and say, in all things, I want to make sure I'm doing things right by you and seeing the world in the way that you want me to see it. I want to do that. Show me how to do that. I think that's a really honourable way to do it. Now, guys, what am I talking about? I'm talking about a bit of a heart shift that I need to work on. I think some of the frustrations that, I don't think I'm alone on this, I think some of the frustrations that people have experienced with the church come from the generations that have pushed an agenda, have pushed a need to do things their way, if you like. I think that's where we have seen a lot of division, and I think it's very human for us to want to see people enjoy things the way that we enjoy them. I think it's a very natural instinct. I think it's something that regardless of what generation we're in, we're going to be tempted to want to see the generations, that are still to come or that are below us, if you like, that have come after us, see things the way that we see them. Now, I can see that in my own family. There are times where I think, I wish you guys would just get it. When I'm thinking about my own kids, I'm like, I can only do so much for them to understand where I come from on certain aspects or certain things. And time, I think, is part of that. Giving people the space to be able to process things for themselves. Now, if I'm talking church culture in regards to this specifically, I'm talking about things that have made my eyes roll from time to time, have made me sort of check out when it comes to, do I really want to turn up for church? Do I really want to be a part of the church world? Certainly it hasn't been like that for a long time, obviously. I'm a pastor's wife now, so I have come a long way, really. But there have been times where if people were talking about, they were telling us how great hymns are, and hymns are the only way that we should be doing things. My brain is already out the door. I'm like, I'm done. No thanks. I'm not interested in this. When it comes to things like the emphasis, I think, that my grandma's generation would have had in terms of how they saw the missionary, and don't get me wrong, they do some awesome stuff. I don't mean that. But I think we got things wrong as the church in highlighting these people as the ultimate Christian. The pastor and the pastor's family, they are the ultimate Christian. No, they're not. I can tell you straight up, I'm the pastor's wife. Yeah, we are not. We are very much your everyday person who is just trying to do their best to know and to serve God. But we are not, there's certainly no lights going out there to go, oh, watch them. And the worship, I think worship leaders can kind of get that same sort of thing. I think we have to be very careful to not put people in the spotlight, and we have done it. We've done that in far too many proximities and ways. Good news, guys, is that you guys are actually, you and me, we are actually all called to share God's love and God's truth with the whole globe. We are told to get out there amongst it. I think, and I said this before, we were talking a little bit earlier on, but I think part of the issue is that we need to be able to talk about the stuff that I've just talked about. The things that have made people go, ugh, I want nothing to do with that. I don't want to hear about religion. I don't want to hear about, your faith. I don't want to hear about Jesus. What are those things that have been shut down for the people around us? What has happened in their mindset? These are things we need to go to. We need to kind of understand the culture and the thinking of what is happening and playing out around us. But we also need to be mindful of our own heart. And that's why, even though I was hoping to get into Mexico this morning, and that is why I sort of feel like we need to examine some of that stuff in ourselves. If you are like me, if there are things that you've checked out from, if there are elements of your faith or your religious sort of, even it could just be upbringing, if there's parts of you that you're just like, yeah, nah, I want nothing to do with that, I would suggest that now is a good time for each of us to really, really question that. Why? Why are we so against something that makes us go, no, I'm not interested in that? Because these things are things that people will come and they will see that there's a bit of a reservation or hesitation in us, and they'll start to ask themselves questions about why they should be interested in knowing about this Jesus. If we are even kind of having issues with other denominations or other leaders or other ways of doing things, if that is happening, then there's no way they're going to want to know. They will not want to know more about Jesus. So there's some work for us to do. But more than that, I think as we move into this series of, if we, similar to what I have been doing or have just started to do with the kids club I've just taken on, if we're thinking about 70 days around the globe or even more, if we're fulfilling what Jesus has asked us to do, and drawing attention to Mexico or to Thailand or to Greece or wherever we are going, we need to be mindful of the culture of those people. And so it's a really good way for us to check in. Before we get going, I will just give you some statistics in terms of, because I do want to get onto Mexico today. I think it's really important for us to zoom in and just go, what is actually happening out there? In terms of the faith over there. Now, again, I'm hesitant to say this stuff because I know that what we can find online doesn't necessarily mean it is actually reflective of what is happening. Why do I know that? Because I've worked amongst it. I've worked amongst lots and lots of different cultures, and those experiences challenged me to question everything that I saw in media. It challenged me to question everything that I saw, social media and online. I've worked directly with the people who have been impacted by a lot of things that are just not highlighted or the truth given. So my mind and my eyes are open to all sorts of things. But what I have found when I'm looking at Mexico in terms of Christianity, we're looking at around 91.3% of Christianity as the more predominant sort of religion over there. We have, if you're looking at specific denominations, Roman Catholicism is a big, there's a massive chunker there. So we're looking at around about 78% of the total population for that. And there's obviously other sort of religious groups through there. But that gives you a little bit of an insight into their faith. Again, I don't know what that looks like to live and be amongst it. I don't know what that is, what that entails. I'm not sure if it's a religious thing. I haven't been to Mexico myself. I've got very, very close, but I haven't actually been there myself. But these are some sort of starting sort of things for us to be mindful of as we start kicking things off. Mexico, it looks like it could be a pretty Christian-based nation. Does that mean we just don't pray or we don't acknowledge them? Of course not. We're going to come back and we're going to do exactly that. So I will see you guys back here not too long. I'll see you soon. And that was Can't Nobody by Brie McDonald. Good morning and welcome back to Rhema Central Coast. It's a delight to have my Sunday mornings with you guys yet again. I'm Lindy. Thanks for joining us. It's nice to have you around. I hope you can stick around for the rest of the day. I will only be here for about another hour, but we have certainly got some great programs coming through for the rest of the day. And we've got, the teams here all week. So there's you'll hear one of us around different times. If you can pop in throughout the week, we would love to have you as often as you can. Have you got your sombrero ready? Have you got your, are you all packed up, ready to go? Because if you are, Mexico might be a good place for you to land. Why am I saying that? Well, we are talking about, finally, I had planned to do more Mexico sort of talking stuff this morning, but we had a bit of a shift. Before we could get into that, I just realised that there was some stuff that God was working on in me, myself, and my approach to the call that we have to be a people of nation reachers, if you want to put it that way. We are called to, as the Great Commission, from Jesus himself, we are called to go out into all the nations, to baptize them, to lead them in ways that show them who he is and that they need him more, and to show them how to do that. But there was a bit of a twist there, because I realized that there's some stuff that I needed to work on, and I really felt like God's going, hey, while you're on it, you might as well throw this stuff out for other people too. So we've talked about that this morning. If you're interested in hearing a bit about that, I'm sure it will be on the podcast at some time this week. We would love for you to go back and listen to that if you think it could be of help, because my goodness, every one of us have stuff we need to work on, do we not? And apparently that's something I need to work on, changing my perspective and my attitude towards some of the traditional or Christian culture, if you like. I think there's probably some stuff I need to work on there, but all good. We need to have these conversations, do we not? Mexico, guys. We are talking about Mexico because, well, again, there's a bit of a story behind that, but I won't go into that again just at the moment. We are talking about Mexico because we are, in the next little bit, we're going to talk about different parts of the globe and what's going on for them, how things are playing out over there. I am looking at the moment at hrw.org. It's a world report based on Mexico. I'm looking at the things that are, social issues for Mexico. Criminal violence has been highlighted. We have judicial independence. I've got the lights. I'm kind of doing weird things on the computer I'm looking at, but so that is a bit of an issue, or has been a bit of an issue. What do they mean by that? It just says here, in September, I don't know what year this is, a constitutional amendment was approved that will require all state and federal judges, including Supreme Court and electoral tribunal justices, to step down and be replaced through popular elections in 2025 and 2027. So there's some big shifting stuff, things happening there with that sort of thing. There's issues with the criminal justice system as such. It has been deemed extremely ineffective. Huge. Torture. Okay, these are things that we probably don't have highlighted when we looked at, if we go and do some research on Australia. Authorities often use torture to obtain confessions and extract information. This is something that's apparently happening. It says here, authorities received 6,226 criminal complaints of torture or cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment in 2022. And this is according to the National Torture Observatory. Again, we've got here, it's got only 82 cases that year led to criminal charges. So out of all of those things that took place, 6,226, only 82 were actually treated fairly according to this. There's arbitrary detention. What have we got here? Presented findings from its 2023 visit to Mexico. The working group expressed concern that arbitrary detention remains a widespread practice in Mexico and is too often the catalyst for ill treatment, torture, enforced disappearance and arbitrary executions. So clearly there is some stuff going on that would leave people living in a really heightened state. What have we got? I can't go into a lot of details. There's not a huge amount of time, but clearly this is stuff that is huge that we thankfully don't really hear about here in Australia. Disappearances. People just vanishing. What have we got here? In January, the government closed the office of the National Human Identification Centre, a government body operated by the National Search Commission, and fired many of its staff, journalists reported. That centre was created in 2022 to address the lack of forensic capacity in many prosecutors' offices, which contributes to disappearances. Interesting. Those who are living in America are dealing with poverty and inequality. Statistically, the poverty rate fell under Lopez. Obrador's presidency. Now, when was that? Let me see. 2022 is the last thing they've referenced here. From 41.9% to 36.3% in 2022. So there is obviously a bit of a shift there, but obviously it's something that is a huge part of what they're living with. Now, privacy and access to information is a bit of an issue. There are attacks on those who are trying to put out the truth. Journalists, human rights defenders, they're going for them. That has got to be a massive obstacle too. There are many, many things here that I could go through. I'm going to hold it there. But it just shows you that by simply doing some research into the nations around us, the ones that we think are going okay, the ones that we think, oh yeah, you're all right, you've got, statistically, I said before we had our break before, that we are looking at a nation of about 91% of Christians. And yet we can, we look at how we are, these statistics right now as I'm giving them to you, do they really go hand in hand? Those sort of things, are they really living the Christian life that is completely the opposite to some of this stuff? Or are they actually thriving because of it? Because that can happen too. There are so many questions that we can ask when we look at different cultures. And, we're just starting with Mexico. I don't know why I picked Mexico, probably because I knew it would be easy to make tacos with the kids at Kids Club. I was like, yeah, that's easy. But, just having that little bit of research, that insight into what is going over there can really change the way that we pray for those people who need it. And more than that, it can equip us if we are ever in a position where we find ourselves getting on a plane to become a missionary, to be somebody who is out there amongst it. Certainly I want to give, I've probably said some things this morning in terms of missionaries that probably haven't been overly supportive, purely because I think the church needs to be a check in and go, hang on, how do we see all people in the church? We're all in it. We all have our role to play. We all have things that we are called to do for Jesus. And missionaries who are going abroad and doing this sort of thing, they definitely deserve our support and our respect. They need our prayers more than anything. They need our financial support. But we also need to remember that we have a responsibility in that too. And we can be doing all those background things that can support them. We can be doing the praying. We can be doing the things that give them that little bit of a confidence boost to keep going. Maybe you're someone who's leaning that way. Maybe you're close to going into a part of the world that you think, whew, okay, this could be tough. It's a big call. Anyway, I'll leave it there. We'll be back soon. I'll kind of tie things up for today. I'll see you soon. Hey, and welcome back, guys. That was Heal Me. What a prayer that can be for any one of us. We can certainly deal with some healing at any point, whether things are bad or things are not so bad. There's always aspects of who we are that could use a little bit of rewiring, or an full-blown overall transformation. That would be nice too sometimes. But healing is one of those things that we can get from God, and how much goodness do we get and we understand when we see Him doing His thing. I have just found, and I might be late to the party, guys. This might be something that you are very much aware of already, but there is as a streaming service that you can actually get. You can get it on for free. I'm pretty sure it's Angel Productions. They do a lot of the movies and stuff that are kind of Christian-based. But there's some good series at the moment, and one of them is actually called Miracle. And you can access a few of those episodes for free. I started to watch that, and I'm like, I'm hooked. So if you are interested in sort of some uplifting stuff, a lot of it is based on healing and just seeing what God has done in some pretty dynamic ways, that's a good way to check out and sort of go, yeah, I'm just going to just spend some time. I want to hear what's God been doing for other people. I encourage you to do that. I found it really, really good this week just to hear some of the stories. It's amazing. Anyway, guys, we have been talking about a few different things. I was mainly trying to sort of spend some time focused on one particular nation today. I explained this morning that I have just started doing a kids club, and we are doing a sort of theme of 70 days around the globe. Our first week, obviously, is going to be, not obviously, but it's obviously for me. If you know me, you know I love Mexican food. So I'm like, yeah, cool, let's do that. But we are spending some time this week, or we did spend some time this week, sort of exploring Mexico. We've here on this Sunday morning, we've done a little bit of looking into the sort of social stuff that's going on for Mexico themselves. What sort of adversities they have, what things are big deals socially for them. And a lot of it means they are living under a lot of pressure to, there's some stuff where I think plenty of us, if we were living under that sort of pressure, it would just be, some really, really horrible stuff. Things that we just thankfully don't know about. Some of the stuff that we specifically, that I mentioned before, things like there's abuses by the military, there's attacks if you're a journalist that you can be in trying to actually put out the truth of what is happening. Human rights defenders are likely to be, in position of being attacked in some way. Those who are trying to do good are often put in positions where they are, it's life-threatening, if you like. Poverty and inequality, that's been something that has been a big issue for quite some time, according to the research I've found. And things even like disappearances, people just going missing because, they were connected to this or connected to that. Arbitrary detention, these are big things because they're massive pressures to be living under. So, this is obviously you and I are not sitting around having our, tacos together or our quesadillas, or we're not sitting around with our sombreros on, but we can spend some time together acknowledging that Jesus is needed in these places. Now, I did mention that according to some other research, 91% of the population in Mexico is more aligned with the Christian faith. They are known more as a Christian nation. And yet we see these things happening. So you kind of have to question what that looks like, how much substance there is to that. But also you have to wonder if maybe they're thriving, if it really is a Christian nation, if they are thriving because they are constantly in a state of high alert. And you see things like that in places, all across the globe. I have worked with many, many nations through the people I've had interactions with. It's been a while, but I have learnt more about the sort of feeling of the Christian faith because of persecution. So, these things have both a beautiful response and a really hard, harsh response. Persecution can be a double-edged sword. I really believe that. But this does not mean that we can't go and be amongst it. If you are called to be somebody who you believe God is going, you know what, I actually need you in Mexico. I encourage you to go and do that. If you are feeling that stirring, get out amongst it and follow his call. Follow his call with a genuine heart. And I think that's the key for any of us. Wherever we are planted, wherever we are supposed to be doing the things that we are supposed to be doing in terms of sharing God, we have to do it with the right heart. We have to do it with a genuine and sincere hope that those amongst us will hear the word of God and be transformed through it. You and I sit here today. If you are somebody who knows what faith looks like, you know that Jesus, having him as your best friend, is the be all and end all. We know it. We know how good and how powerful that truth is. And, what an honor to be able to share that in whatever way we can. Certainly I think we need to be thinking about and praying for those who are already out and doing their thing amongst different parts of the world, missionaries all over the globe, little remote villages or big big towns, it doesn't matter. If people are moving from where they are to go into some other part of the globe that's not their norm, they need our prayers, guys, and we need to be able to support them as much as we can. So yeah, I want to encourage you, keep them in your prayers this week. God, I'm actually going to pray right now. I'm going to sort of throw it out there. God, please hear our prayers for those who are amongst this. Give them the strength, give them the wisdom and the discernment to know how to handle their communities, to know their culture well, to be able to challenge the research that they've done with the people that they meet who are amongst that culture. Help them to learn how to break down barriers that might keep them at a distance. God, I pray for those who are doing some big stuff in the world. And specifically this morning, God, we lift up Mexico to you. You know the challenges that take place there. You know what happens in the day-to-day. You know the fear that some of them must live under. And you're a God who works all things for the good of those who love you. So we pray that more and more people are turning to hear you with authenticity. They want to know how to handle things well. I thank you that you're a God who is available to them, and I pray that they have your peace and your constant. And I thank you for Mexico, and I pray that you do your thing there, and that we can see you move. Amen. Guys, I'm going to leave that there. We are going to travel to Greece next week, if you like. We'll talk some more Greece sort of stuff next week. But yeah, a few challenges there for each of us. Where's your heart at? Where's your head at? And how's things playing out? I'm being challenged by that myself. I'll see you guys back here next Sunday morning. Have a great Sunday, and yeah, take care. I'll see you then.